this video is a bit of this and a bit of that. First of all, when we get rid of all this title nonsense, I'm going to show you my screen. I'm going to compositing. This is one way of doing it. That is just the UV image viewer. That's 3D. We don't need either of these. Well, I don't use either. So we get the corner, move it up, and then we want to move it down to collapse so we get the big screen, because that's on Compositor. Now we don't need any of that sidebar. We're ever fighting room, so the bigger you can get the screen the better. Use nodes and backdrop. Now this is another way of doing it, and horses for courses really, but this way we can just change the screen from, in this case, 3D view to whatever we want, and if we press Alt up arrow we go full screen. Alt down arrow will give us back to the other screen. Alt up, Alt down, and it leaves us with the timeline as well. Anyway, back to where we were. I'm going to import a bit of video. Well, eventually, when I get my act together, put a couple of outputs in, put a split viewer, and a composite. We did just get rid of that, but no worries. Now this I found in the Blender instructions or Blender manual. Odd place, but when you're really stuck, head to the instructions. We want 4 maths nodes, and we can get those by going to add, as you see, or we can press Shift D to duplicate and Shift D again to duplicate. I'll just shuffle these about a bit. As I say, I got this from the Blender manual. It's very rarely I read it because it wastes even more time than I do. Plug that in there and we get half a girl. We'll switch it to half the other way, if you see what I mean, on the y-axis. Then we'll plug that in there, and we change this maths node from add to multiply, and we'll give it a value of 6. This is the value that Blender manual says to use. And we'll switch this one to subtract and leave it at 0.5. Plug that into there, and we use round. They suggest nothing. Well, a value of nothing means it's doing nothing, so what it's there for I don't know. This one goes divide. Even the wizards at Blender can get it wrong. Plug that into the bottom, and you see we've got a black and white posterized thing. If we switch this to 5, you can see it's quite posterized, that. As I say, this round really does nothing at all that I can see. Could get rid of it altogether. I ought to have tried with it, nothing in there, but as I say, well, it's one of those things. We'll add a colour mix, and we'll drop some colour back in, and we need to plug that in there. We've got them the wrong way around, as always. There we go. Now, if we change this from mix to add, you can see we've got posterized colours. We've got all the blending modes that you're used to in Photoshop here. Soft light will be darker, which is about half of the course with this nonsense. Screen will be lighter. Screen's quite good. But I think we'll stick with add. Maybe divide, I don't know. You can flick through, find whatever you fancy. Divide I quite like really, but they're all very silly. Like most of these things. You know, I can't really think of a use for them. I just started messing and didn't stop really. This is how I first started before I went and looked at the instructions. Just using an RGB curves and selecting each one. And if you have a line something like that, it does posterize. But go through each colour and just set them roughly like that. And he sort of does it really. I suppose it does it a bit. Anyway, it wasn't doing the job, so I decided to look in the instructions. And this is the video of the Blender way of doing it. It's quite good, I think.